my name is Lucy Hewes and I am presenting this session to you, following on from a sharing good practice for tutors in a practical subject session. So the purpose of the session was to share good practice of teaching a practical subject online. I teach sewing, pattern cutting, dressmaking, and all areas of fashion, and have been doing so successfully since we were propelled into online learning at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. I'm going to talk you through the equipment and the software that I use and how I record learning during the sessions. I'm going to show you my setup and how it works and how the students remain engaged throughout a practical session. First of all, I would like to show you the equipment that I use. So this here is a visualizer. It's a 4K visualizer and it's got a really good zoom and focus on there. You can lighten the image that you're seeing and darken the image that you're seeing. This is from IPVO and it's just a really good piece of equipment. What I'm going to show you next is the Uplift by Impivo, and this is for a mobile device. So if you want to pre-record anything or get closer into angles using your mobile phone, then this is really useful also. So as you can see with the 4K camera, how close you can get. And so this is at the minute positioned on top of the sewing machine, and it's a weighted bottom, so it doesn't move. It does stay in the same place. So the students can see so close and they can see everything that you're doing on the actual, just by using the camera. And then again, I'm up in the top corner. So I'm using, this was a pre-recorded tutorial, but I'm up in the top corner so that I can keep talking to the students and talking through. And it's just like little techniques. They can see everything that you're doing with your hands. You can be explaining as everything, as you're going through everything. And then they can, even if they're asking questions, you can adapt, you can move your camera so they can see. You can see really close up, you can see where the marking, you can see the foot, you can see how it's stitching. It's just a really good tool. It was one of the best things that I got for the online teaching. It made it so much easier. This is OBS and this is a switcher that you can use on your computer. So I'm going to show you how to set it up. So the first thing that we do is we set up a new scene. So by clicking the plus button and then naming your scene. So this one is the Holex training session. Once I've done that, it'll set up its own sources button, and then all you need to do is go in and add what you're going to be using. So I'm going to add in my cameras first. So I'm going to go to video capture device and create a new and find my face camera and click that. So we'll just make that a little bit smaller. and then add another camera, my overhead camera, so video capture device again, and in there pick out the overhead camera. So there's my overhead camera. Okay, so we've got those two set up, ready to go. So if I make that a little bit smaller as well for the minute, because I don't know how I'm going to set things up. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add in my audio input capture, which is my computer. So I'm going to go to MacBook Air microphone and click on that. So the most important thing if you are going to record from OBS is that you put your audio input in, else you'll have videos with no sound. That was a mistake that I made. Next thing that you can do, you can actually add in the ones that I use it for. So you can see all the way down what you can actually add in. And I would just advise having a little play and setting a few things up. So I'll show you the things that I use. So I'm going to add in an image. I'm going to go find an image that I'm going to show in here. So if I go to my desktop, and then I'm looking at the product specs for the visualizer. So I'm going to add that in. Click OK. So these have to be saved as JPEGs so that you can add them in as pictures. So if you're working with a text document, you'll need to change it into a JPEG. So I'll show you that in a second. So now I've imported the image. It's got a red box all the way around it, which is going to allow me to resize it. So I can resize it down. So it either fits on the page with a border around it, or so it fills the whole page. Once you're happy with how that's set out, you can then go back down to the sources bar and you can lock that into place. Now, I always like to have my video above everything, so as I'm talking, people can still see my face. So I always have that over the top. So when I'm happy, I can then as well lock the camera into place. I can lock my audio as well, and then that can go right at the bottom, so everything can stack up on top of that. So if I was to add in a Word document, so if I go to image again, and look for the Word documents that I've got on my desktop. So that is a JPEG image. So I've saved it from Word as a PDF and then taken a screenshot of the PDF to turn it into an image. There may be an easier way to do it, and if you find out, let me know. But that's the way that I can then get that document in there. So that's a document, written document. So as I'm teaching a class, we can refer back to instructions all together. I'm just going to take that one out because I don't need that one in there now. So on here, I'm going to show you how the camera that I use. So that's how you would set up. And then as you was teaching your class, you could then, the little eyes, switch off and switch on what you're looking at and what you're working with. So I'm just going to take that image off, and then my overhead camera, I'm going to make that big. And this is usually how I set up with my practical session. And I will show you a video as well so that you can see how the overhead camera works. In OBS, you can use as a virtual camera. So to use it as a virtual camera, you would click on Start Virtual Camera. And then in Zoom, that would pick up that you was using OBS as your camera. And then you can come back and you can start recording. So it'll actually record as you're going along. So you just click on that and it records everything that is on this screen. So if you are recording sessions as you go in, and then you can edit later, so you don't have to pre-record video tutorials, that one's always handy. When you have finished recording, you go up to OBS, so you click on File and Remux Recordings. So if I open that out now, and then I can click on my files that I've recorded and open them, and it'll come up in here. And if you just go to Remux, it'll actually turn your OBS recording into an MP3, and then it'll save it wherever you want it to save. So mine saves in my movie file, and then I can go on to either edit it or just upload it straight onto YouTube for my students to see. So that there is OBS, a quick view of OBS. I find using YouTube is really useful. So during my sessions, if I know that people are not going to be attending for any reason, I record the session and then upload it. So I record and then I edit using Premiere Pro and then upload directly into YouTube. And it's a really good way of documenting all your video tutorials, whether it's sessions that are recorded or whether it's tutorials that are uploaded. If it's sessions, they're always listed as private, and I never record the Zoom session. I always record from OBS, so it doesn't pick up any of the students, only if they're talking, but then when I go to edit it after the session, I can cut out, unless the questions are relevant, I can cut out a lot of discussion. So as well, you can list as public. So if you want anybody to access it, you can do, or you can list it as unlisted, or you can list it as private. So that's a really good resource, and all your students can access this via a link. So if you don't want people to see it, then if you unlist it, and then you can just send you the link straight directly to your students. I use Adobe's Premiere Pro to edit my videos. I use a lot of the other software as well. So as a package, I pay a monthly subscription. I've always used this software, so I'm used to the way that it's set out. So again, if you're looking for a editing software, Adobe Premiere Pro is another one that is really useful. With learning online, it came really clear how vital photographs, videos, and communication between tutor and student was. So, for example, during this bodice block course, Claire made up her pattern and toile and then sent me some images so I could analyse her body shape, and then I gave her feedback of what she needed to do, why things were happening in the way that they were, and where to start, what alterations she would need to do to achieve the perfect fit. So as well as using the online classroom, we also had a two-way conversation via email with photographs. So I'll just take you through. So as Claire was altering, each time she would send me back a photograph of what she'd done, and then we then analysed, ready to move on to the next bit until the task was finished. Now, I knew that Claire had a particular book that I had, so I use that as a reference also, as well as my explanation. She then had the backup from the book, and all this was noted down so that she could refer to it later on, whether she did a bodice block for somebody else or she had to alter hers again. So as we go down, you can see each time Claire uploads a picture, and then I will then write in what the issue is and how to amend that. And it became clear with Claire's shape that she was asymmetrical. So she had a higher shoulder on one side and a higher hip on the other, which meant that there was a few more complex alterations to do. And with a practical subject, it's very difficult to do that because it's a very hands-on subject. So with the photos and the videos and the live sessions, we were able to go through and combine all that together for Claire to achieve the perfect fit. So that was a really useful way to record learning and document for the student to refer back to and to actually see the student's work. So at the end, Claire had achieved what she'd set out to do. So that was brilliant. Good practice during our session, Padlet came up a few times from a few different people. So I've set up a little Padlet and how it could work as a sketchbook, if you like. So it can be set up as a two-way conversation between student and tutor, or it could be set up as a group board and discussion. So this one is set up as a one-to-one with a student. So on here, there is so many samples that the student has to submit with annotations about what stitch type they use, the accessories and tools, and the material type that they used. So this is a really good way and a really visual way to see their work. So as you can see there, you can upload videos if you want to, if that's easier for you. You can upload photographs. There's quite a lot of things that you can do with Padlet. So the way that I do it is I set up in the yellow boxes. That's me. I'm talking and giving instructions there. So anything that's yellow is from me. So in there, I've written all the instructions, made the learning outcomes accessible for the students, given information about how to upload samples, and then given templates for the bits that need templates. So the students can go ahead and copy and paste those for them to use. And then across the top, I've added in the tabs, which give the different types of samples that the students need to produce. And then, so if I just go back, so for this one, so for example, a student has uploaded a picture into the free machine section, and then underneath I have offered some feedback. And so each time, and as and when the student would upload their work, I can then go in and I can see and I can offer feedback in addition to working with the student in the live sessions. Padlet was a really good example for a visual, practical, creative course because you can see everything there and you can see everything on it. And one of the good things about Padlet is that Students and tutor can comment on there, and at the end the board can be locked. So if you are doing an accredited course, the IQA and EQA can come. If you're doing a non-accredited course, it's a really good way to record learning. As well, if you want to delete the boards after they've been used per course, you can actually download and export them as a PDF at the end. So it's a good way as well to keep all the work together. About Padlet is that you can use the app on your mobile phone. So you can take pictures, videos, and add any annotations via the app. So you can upload directly rather than taking photographs on your phone and uploading it then onto your computer before uploading it onto Padlet. Another thing that also came up was stars, and this is a private messaging service. So it's private and safe. You can use it on your tablet or your phone, and you can use a range of media within the messages. So that's just a good way to protect your data. So if you've got a student that wants to send you something from their phone, but you don't want to give out your telephone number, then it almost acts as like a WhatsApp messaging, but everything is protected and there's no information between student and tutor transferred, only the work that needs to be submitted. Another thing that came up was a few of the Google apps. So we've got Google Jamboard, and on there it will take you to boards. So from today's session that we did, on here you can see as a starting point, what do you want to get out from today's session? So the students can then access the same board as you, and you can all be looking at it at the same time, and then you can use the tools down at the side. So it's an interactive whiteboard that you can use on your computer and your students can access it. Again, with Google, you can access it online on your computer or on your phone if you've got a smartphone. One of the questions that did come up was editing software, a simple editing software that is free. Now, with all software, it takes a bit to get used to. However, DaVinci Resolve is an editing software that is free to download. And if you are cutting and if you're pasting in video and then cutting in places, maybe speeding up certain areas and then exporting into YouTube, then DaVinci Resolve could solve your issues as a starter package, and then you'll be able to discover the amount of things that you can do with DaVinci that would enhance your editing. So DaVinci Resolve is a really good resource for for editing video. Thank you for taking the time to watch this presentation. If you do have any further additions to this, please comment underneath and add in what you would like to say. Thank you very much from me and Holex.